Hare Krishna, Dandavat pranams to everybody. Haribol, Haribol, welcome, welcome, welcome. 17th of February, Saturday, 2024. There's a very beautiful verse, actually, I wanted to share at this point from the second canto, third chapter, text 17. Ayu harati vaipum sam. Udyan astam chayan asti. And this means that both by rising and by setting, the sun decreases the duration of life of everyone. So I was thinking in context to saying the date each day and saying the time and the year, etc., just to be conscious that time is always moving along. And life for everyone, except for one who utilizes their time for discussing topics of Uttama Shloka Sri Krishna. So we're all right. We're out of that. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari O Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari O Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari O Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari O Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Nityananda Rai, Jaya Nityananda Rai, Nityananda Rai, Jaya Nityananda Rai. Oh, Jaya Sachinandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachinandan, Jaya Gaura Hari. Oh, Jaya Radha, Madana Mohan Radha, Madana Mohan Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Oh, Radhe, 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 Radhe. Jai Shri Shri Guru Garanga Ganhabika Grit Hari. Radha Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai. Nityananda Rai Ki Jai. Sachinandana Gaur Hari Ki Jai. Jai Shila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Surabhi Kunj Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om. Astottara Sarashishimat Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om. Astottara Sarashishimat Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om. Astottara Sarashishimat Shila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Lila Pravishta Om. Astottara Sarashishimat Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Paramahamsa Mahabhagavat Srila Gaurikishodas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Jai Saptama Goswami Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Jai Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan Gaudi Vedantaracharya ki jai. Jai Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur ki jai. Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Traya ki jai. Jai Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami ki jai. Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shri Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sat Goswami Prabhu's ki jai. Jai Swarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Gauda Parsada ki jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Siga Hosi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Shri Gauda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Antadvip Mayapur Simantadvip Gaudamdip Madhyadip Koladip Ritushri Janadip Modamdip Rudradip Atmaka Navadvip Dham ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Dvarasa Vadmatmika Brajamandal ki jai. Shri Radha Kun Shama Kun Ganga Jamuna Devi Jai. Shri Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shrimati Brinda Devi Maharani ki jai. Yogmaya Punadwasi Devi Maharani ki jai. Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra ki jai. Ketra Mandal ki jai. Sarva Vigna Vinashakari Shina Shingadev Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakta Pravar Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Charidam ki jai. Chari Sampradaya ki jai. Chari Acharya ki jai. Akara Mataraj Shri Chaitanya Mat ki jai. Shri Keshav Ji Gaudiya Mat ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Anantakoda Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Samagatvarinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Agina Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Priya Swarupe Dayata Swarupe Prema Swarupe Sahajavi Rupe Nijana Rupe Prabhuika Rupe Tatana Rupe Swavilasa Rupe Anapita Chirim Chirat Kuruna Vartino Kalo Samarapaitam Unnata Ujvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundaratu Tigatamba Sutipita Sada Hridare Kandare Spuratu Vasachinandanaha Yam Pravajantamanapetyamapeti Krityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putre Titam Mayatayo Taravo Vinidustam Sarvabhutam Munim Hridimunato Smi Bhaktiya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptapscha Karmadi Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charana Ravindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Baradram Tato Mamanasti Katirna Kapi Tavaivasmi Najivami Tvaivina Iti Vignaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasat Shishimad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasat Shishimad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada. And I'm offering again millions of times unto the lotus feet of Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchitananda Namane Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate, and to our illustrious Rupanuga Guru Vargya and all the Vaishnav and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhavevicha Patitanam Pavnibhyo Vaishnavevya Namaha. So we're coming to our study of Jaiva Dharma. Today I think we'll conclude the 11th chapter, but we're into the last 5 verses. Page 831. Jaiva Dhamma Pateshe Shura Bhakti Hoy Jaiva Dhamma na Padile Kavi Bhakti Noy.
One who reads a Jaiva Dharma with faithful deliberation will surely attain Shuddha Bhakti. But one who does not read Jaiva Dharma can never attain Bhakti.
What are the precepts that Jaiva Dharma gives us? It gives us all the principal conclusions of Mahaprabhu. It's his conceptions all the way through. culminating in Radha Dasyam. And almost in every single chapter, it's emphasizing sadhu sangha in practically every single chapter. Only through sadhu sangha initially can we begin to establish our relationship with Bhagavan. By sadhu sangha, this is the preliminary stage before we can actually connect with Krishna. This is essential. This cannot ever happen otherwise. So sadhu sangha is the first requisite in this material world to connect with the Lord, particularly, of course, through Guru. So all these precepts are very, very clear in this Jaiva Dharma. So if not reading this Jaiva Dharma, then how can we ever attain bhakti? What is bhakti? Devotion to Krishna. If we're not devoted to his devotees, how can we be devoted to him? It's quite simple. Rupanuga
Rupanuga
Abhiman
Abhiman
Pate
Pate
Drita
Drida
Hoy
Hoy,
Jaiva
Jaiva
Dharma
Dharma
Vimuka
Vimuka
Ke
Ke
Dharma
Dharma
Hine Koi.
Hinaka. Faithfully reading Jaiva Dharma will surely strengthen one's Abhiman as a Rupanuga, follower of Sri Rupa Goswami. One who is averse to reading Jaiva Dharma is certainly devoid of religious
How
principles.
beautiful. Bhaktivinoda Thakur brings in Rupa Goswami right in the very final part of his Falshruti. Without the teachings and precepts of Rupa Goswami, who is the mouthpiece for Mahaprabhu. Priya Swarupe, Daita Swarupe, Prema Swarupe, Sahajavi Rupe, Nijana Rupe, Prabhu Eka Rupe, this Nijana Rupe. He was most qualified to give this um, truth of Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu's truth is so esoteric, really, really, that this Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritiya Kladini Shakti Asmat, he's come as Radha and Krishna combined. He's always Krishna, but he's come combined as Radha and Krishna. He's carrying the bhav and kanti of Sri Radhika. So this is astonishing to consider, absolutely astonishing to consider. And because Radhika has allowed Krishna to carry her bhav and kanti, she is responsible for this line. So she gives her most dedicated maidservant, Sri Rupa Goswami, and then all the other maidservants of Sri Radhika. It's Radhika's line. We know the pastime of when Bhaktivinoda Thakur manifested. There had been darkness for 100 years prior to that. Radhika was holding her play lotus. She threw it into the world. What does lotus mean in Sanskrit? It's Kamala, Kamala Manjari. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he picked up that potency. He's Gora Shakti. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is the Gora Shakti. Namo Bhaktivinodaya Satchidanandanamane Gora Shakti Swarupaya. He's the Gora Shakti. He's the Shakti of um, Mahaprabhu. That is Gadadha. So this is the strengthen one's abhiman as a Rupa Nuga. To feel, yes, I am a Rupa Nuga. That is my identity. That is your identity. You're in this line, so therefore you are a Rupa Nuga. This is our line, Rupa Nuga. Okay. Next verse. Yavajivane
Yavajivana Jai
je pada jaiva dharma
Dharma Bhakti
bhaktiman se jana brita
Manajinyananta
jnana
Jnana Karma.
karma.
One who faithfully reads Jaiva Dharma throughout his entire life will be endowed with bhakti and will surely realize the futility of Gyan and Karma.
Yes, we say anyabilasita sunyam jnana karmadi anavritam. This jnana and karma is to be left behind. It is not going to be helpful for our bhakti, except the two types of gyan we've described so many times. Do you remember? Tat padartha gyan,
Tvam.
knowledge of Krishna's supremacy, Swayam Bhagavan, Raso Vaisa, etc., and
Tvam.
Tvam padartha gyan, knowledge of the jiva. The jiva is anuchit, Krishna is vibhuchit. So to appreciate our insignificant position is the beginning of bhakti. So leaving behind gyan and karma. Krishna Ramala Seva Lavi Senara
Seva
Seva Sukhi
Sukha
Magnaraha
Magnara
Sada
Sara
Krishna
Krishna Para.
Para.
Such a man, being fully devoted to Shri Shri Radha Krishna Yugal Kishore, and having attained their Amal Prem Seva, remains forever merged in the bliss of such immaculate loving service.
How incredible. How stunning that one who becomes fully devoted to Radha and Krishna Yugal Kishore will attain their Amala Prem Seva. What does Amal mean? That pristine, immaculate Prem Seva. Seva doesn't say Prem, it says Prem Seva. We understand what is the Prem, Unnata Ujvala Rasam. This is the Prem that Mahaprabhu is experiencing in the Gambhira in particular. But what is he giving? The Swabhakti Shriyam. This is what he's giving, service to the Prem. We always have to consider this. Service is the symptom of love. Everything is progressing when that mood of seva is prominent. If there's no seva, then there can be no development of consciousness. Krishna even is serving Radhika. When Radhika, we've explained before, is in Man, why does she go in Man? So Krishna has an opportunity to serve her. Where is Krishna going to serve? Everyone is serving Krishna, but when Radhika goes in Man, Krishna has to roll his sleeves up and really perform all kinds of incredible leelas to break her man. And Radhika goes into man practically every time she meets Krishna straight off to begin with. She's lying in her bed and she's in Javat and she's lamenting. She's in the heat of separation, practically sometimes ready to leave her body in separation. But as soon as she sees Krishna, she walks away. The gopis, Lalita, Vishaka, they manage to bring her to the Kunj. And Krishna comes. Straight away, Radhika says, why have you brought me here? Take me home. I don't want to stay here. This debauchee, this boy, I'm a chaste housewife. So this mood, immediately what does Krishna have to do? Obviously, he has to really bring out the most beautiful aspect of his nature. Radhika's already the recipient of that. She's Shakti Tattva completely. She is that Shakti, Swarup Shakti of Krishna. But in Rasavichar, then she is the predominating personality. She is the supreme. In Tattva Vichar, Krishna, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Matahar Sarvam Paratante. Krishna is the supreme controller of all the spiritual and material worlds. But in Rasa Vichar, Krishna is putting his peacock feather, Smaragarala Kandanam, Mamasi Rasi Mandanam, Dehi Padapalavam Udaram. He's putting his peacock feather and flute at the lotus feet of Sri Radhika. So this is completely amazing, amazing. So when he's saying that the Amal Prem Seva remains forever merged in the bliss of such immaculate loving service. Dandavat Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Tigache? Okay, so that was a beautiful final verse. I'm just going to read it one more time because a little bit distraction there. Such a man being fully devoted to Sri Sri Radha Krishna Yugal Kishore and having attained their Amal Prem Seva remains forever merged in the bliss of such immaculate loving service. You cannot leave that bliss. What's that final bliss? We know this verse. Kleshagni Shubhada Mokshalabhatakrit Sadulabha Sandra Ananda Visheshatma Sri Krishna Akashani Chasa. And I've said many times the meaning of this word Sandra Ananda. Ananda, Sandra. Sandra means that nothing else exists except Ananda. Imagine. There's no other conception except Ananda. That's Prem. That's what is Prem. That's Sandra Ananda.
I've heard nothing can penetrate.
Same.
Yeah.
Nothing can enter.
Yeah.
Nothing else can enter except Ananda. We're always battling in this material world with so many distractions, pollutions of the consciousness coming in. And yet here, the actual ultimate goal is that nothing can come in except Ananda. And we are constituted of Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, the individual jiva. He has the capacity to experience unlimited bliss. We are of the same constitution, Sat Chit Ananda. We are of that same um, state of consciousness, Sat Chit Ananda. We are of that Ananda. And it's unlimited. Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. So it's a pretty good prospect. Why would we want to go? Why would we not focus? I shared this verse at the very beginning. It's from the second canto, chapter 3, verse 17. And there's a whole many verses, maybe 6 or 7 or 8 verses, Shukadeva Goswami. And he's describing why would you want to choose anything other than devotion to Krishna? Actually, in this chapter, Shukadeva Goswami, the whole second canto is Shukadeva Goswami opening out his devotion to the world before he starts to speak. The actual Srimad Bhagavatam only begins really in the beginning of the third canto. In the 10th chapter of the second canto, Atra Sadagat Vishagascha, this verse describing all the different topics, he describes that at the end of the second canto. And at the beginning of the third canto, then there's the Varahadev manifestation, which is happening in a few days. And this is really when Krishna directly becomes described. So in these second canto, many prayers by Shukadeva Goswami demonstrating the nature of Shuddha Bhakti in his heart for us to have complete confidence in the Bhagavatam. And this list that I'm just sharing with you in the third chapter, 17th verse onwards. Do the animals not breathe? Oh, do the blacksmith? Give me that piece of paper that's stuck on the fridge beside you. Oh. Yes, just take it off and give it to me. Let me just share it because it's very, very beautiful. Both by the rising and setting of the sun decreases the duration of life of everyone, except one who utilizes the time by discussing topics of the all good personality of Godhead. Do the trees not live? Do the bellows of the blacksmith not breathe? All around us do the beasts not eat and discharge semen? Men who are like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses praise those men who never listen to the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna, the deliverer of all evils. One who has not listened to the messages about the prowess and marvelous acts of the personality of Godhead and has not sung or chanted loudly the worthy songs about the Lord is to be considered to possess ear holes like the holes of a snake or the tongue of a frog. The upper portion of the body, though crowned with a silk turban, is only a heavy burden, if not bowed down before the personality of Godhead, who can award mukti, freedom. And the hands that are, although decorated with glittering bangles, are like those of a dead man, if not engaged in service to the personality of Godhead, Sri Hari. The eyes, which do not look at the symbolic representations of the personality of Godhead Vishnu, his forms, names, quality, etc., are like those painted on the plumes of a peacock. And the legs, which do not move to the holy places where the Lord is remembered, are considered to be like tree trunks. It's very beautiful, very powerful. The person who has not at any time received the dust of the feet of the Lord's pure devotee upon his head is certainly a dead body. And the person who has never experienced the aroma of the tulsi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord is also a dead body, although breathing. Certainly that heart, this is the most beautiful verse, this is the one to consider for you. Certainly that heart is steel-framed, which in spite of one's chanting the holy name of the Lord with concentration does not change when ecstasy takes place, tears fill the eyes, and the hairs stand on end. Very beautiful string of verses. But I was quoting that at the beginning to put us in context of me every day saying the date and the time, etc., just to appreciate that time is moving along. And we need that urgent connection with the Lord. So we've come to page 254, and the Mula is questioning about the deity. And he's still in his mind, even though he's been spoken by Gaurachandra, he's still considering that it's idolatry. We understand he hasn't really captured it yet. Because understand, this Mullah Sahib, he's an older man. He's been brought up from birth to consider certain um, uh, a certain authority or a certain belief. You don't change that belief just in a moment, unless some incredibly powerful personality like Narada Rishi or someone like that has the ability to transform the heart in a moment. It takes time. So we should also consider in our various um, teaching to other people that it's going to take time to assimilate these remarkable truths. It takes time to meditate and reflect on on the reality of it. So the Mullah is saying on page 254, we read this day before, but I'll read it again because it's just to refresh us. Mullah, the inclination towards God cannot be stimulated by worship of the deity, because the mind of one who performs such worship always remains confined to the properties of matter. It's true. The mind remains contained by matter, unless we have the transcendental relationship of sadhu sangha, which is what we've already mentioned. Gorachand, we can understand the defect in your theory by studying the ancient historical accounts of those who became great devotees. So you have to have some premise, you have to have some platform. So our platform always is those great stalwart Paramahamsas, Mahajans of the past that we recognize are fully self-realized souls by their acts and by everything, their example entirely. Those prophets, we can say, that's what the Mullah Sahib would call them, prophets. In his language, or in the Christian language, we would call them prophets, but in our language, we say Mahajans. So by their so those prophets of Islam or Christianity, they didn't demonstrate deity worship. It's only these personalities in the Vedic or the Aryan race that are demonstrating this Takuji worship. We can understand the defect in your theory by studying the ancient historical accounts of those who became great devotees. Many people began to worship the deity while they were neophytes, but as their devotional mood developed through the association of pure devotees, their realization of the transcendental and conscious nature of the deity also increased, and eventually they became immersed in the ocean of prem. And I gave the example last time of Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj went to the forest under the direct order of Narada Muni, and he established a Thakurji, and he began to chant his mantras, and his devotion just increased so much, to such a degree where eventually Krishna came and reciprocated with him because of the um, uh, because of the words of Narad. Narad has said, within 6 months, if you go to the forest, then Krishna will come. So because of Krishna is answering his devotee. The irrevocable conclusion is that Sat Sangha is the root of all spiritual advancement. When one associates with bhaktas of Bhagavan who are fully situated in divine consciousness, one awakens transcendental affection towards Bhagavan. The more this transcendental affection increases, the more the material idea of the deity vanishes, and through great good fortune, this divine consciousness gradually unfolds. In contrast, the advocates of non-Aryan religions generally oppose deity worship. But just consider how many of them have attained spiritual realization. They do have their prophets in Islam, and you can consider perhaps they have attained a semblance. But if they haven't accepted the murti form, the deity form, how can we feel that to be true? Because Krishna himself, in the 11th canto, speaking to Uddhav, he establishes the worship of the deity. It's very pleasing to Krishna. So if Krishna establishes this, and yet the prophets generally, in Christianity as well as Islam, are like perhaps personalities who have attained mukti. They've perhaps come to that stage of the Brahman. But where are the descriptions of the personality of Godhead? They're not actually there in those scriptures. They're not actually describing the personal form. Therefore, their worship is impersonal, ultimately. I have a friend who's watching. His name is Prakashatma. And he, in his material life, he's a Christian priest. He's a Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada disciple. Very advanced devotee. So he will probably have some questions for me today about this. He always picks up on these religious topics. How many of them attain spiritualization, Chinmoy Bhav? They waste their time in useless arguments and malice. These are the followers of these personalities. When have they experienced true devotion to Bhagavan? So we have to have evidence of something distinct from this if somebody wants to prove this is wrong. Mula. There is no fault if one performs internal bhajan of God in a mood of love and externally engages in the worship of the deity. So he's agreeing. However, how can it be worship of God to worship a dog, a cat, a serpent, or a debauchee? Our revered prophet, Paigambar Sahib, has vehemently condemned such worship of material objects. So he can't shift from this restriction, prohibition in the Shastra they have in their Quran. Gaurachand, all human beings are grateful to God, no matter how many sins they commit. Occasionally they become aware that God is the supreme entity, and when they are endowed with this belief, they bow down before the extraordinary things of this world. We gave the example the other day of the Aboriginals in Australia. They bow down before the large mountains, the big trees, etc. They're showing reverence, they're showing respect. It's the beginning of the journey to have some appreciation for something greater than the self. Because otherwise, like the material scientists, they get so proud of their own discoveries, etc., they can't see beyond their own consciousness, basically. When ignorant people are inspired by their gratitude to God, they naturally offer respect to the sun, a river, a mountain, or to enormous animals. They express their hearts before such things and display submission to them. Granted, there is a vast difference between this type of worship of material objects and the transcendental affection towards the Lord, Chinmaya Bhagavat Bhakti. Still, when such ignorant people adopt a mood of gratitude to God and reverence towards material objects, it gradually produces a positive effect. That's what I was saying. It's like a stage, step by step by step. We are evolving. First of all, offering respects to a mountain, and then the next birth, it'll be to the priests and so on, and gradually. Therefore, if one examines the situation logically, one cannot ascribe any fault to them. Meditation on the formless, all-pervading feature of the Lord and offering namaz and other types of prayers to an impersonal aspect of the Lord are also devoid of pure transcendental love. Offering the respect to the mountain is devoid of transcendence. Offering respect to the big animal is also devoid of transcendence. It's just like an Aishwarya, I'm in awe of this, but it's not transcendentally connected. And now Gaurachandra is saying that offering these prayers to an impersonal aspect is also devoid of pure transcendent love. So how are these methods any different from the worship of a cat, for example? We consider that it is essential to arouse bhav towards Bhagavan by any means. Bhav is that spiritual, heartfelt, emotional submission and worship, rag, mag. Bhagavan by any means. The door leading to gradual elevation is firmly shut if people on any level of worship are ridiculed or condemned. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is not condemning, and he's also advising the mullah, don't condemn. It won't help. Those who fall under the spell of dogmatism, and thereby become sectarian, lack the qualities of generosity and munificence. So we even see this in the Vaishnava, in the devotee communities today. I'm talking about if someone is being very critical of a particular group or anything like that, this is like a sectarian um, aparad. This is if they are following Srimad Bhagavatam, if they're following the tenets and precepts that we consider the main platforms for our progress, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ujjvala Nilamani, all the books of Rupa Goswami and our um, predecessors, if they're following if they're following, then there should be no cause for criticism or sectarian mentality. Well, you're not in my group, therefore we'll fight. That's the tragedy. Those who fall under the spell of dogmatism and thereby become sectarian lack the qualities of generosity and munificence. That is why they ridicule and condemn others who do not worship in the same way as they do. This is a great mistake on their part. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is being very clear here. Don't criticize someone else's worship and just appreciate it. If they're not connecting with transcendence, okay, you understand that, but still they're worshipping a mountain or a tree or a cat or a dog even. Just accept the mood of bhakti, which is beyond worship of self. You understand? A little bit. We have to read this Jaiva Dharma many times to really appreciate it. Mula. Then must we conclude that everything is God, and that to worship anything at all is worship of God? That would mean that worship of sinful objects or the sinful tendency is also worship of God. Do all these different types of worship please God? Good question. Gaurachandra. We do not say that everything is God. On the contrary, God is distinct from all these things. God creates and controls everything, and everything has a relationship with him. The thread of that relationship runs through everything, and that is why one may inquire about the presence of God in all things. God has made all things. How can the thread of the reality of the Lord not be present in all objects? But it's not transcendental to worship a cat. It's not transcendental to worship a dog. It's not transcendental to worship a mountain. There's going to be no reciprocation there of the Lord. It hasn't come in the correct method. If we worship the devotees, who are the repositories of Krishna's mercy, especially the pure devotees, they are with the Lord. They can directly give us the Lord. Vaishnava Thakur, we sing this beautiful bhajan. You can give me Krishna because you have seen Krishna. It's saying like that. The thread of that relationship runs through everything, and that is why one may inquire about the presence of God in all things. As one inquires into the presence of God in all things, one can gradually taste or experience the supreme transcendental and conscious entity. This is expressed in the sutra Jignasa Ashvadanavadi. How do you say that? Inquiry leads to experience. We know Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He himself has said, who is a devotee? Then he says, everyone is a devotee. Some know it, and some don't know it. With that kind of mood and mentality, you can walk very freely through this world. And you can offer respects to everybody, because you're knowing, like these Vaishnavas have come out of their recitation of Chaitanya Bhagavat, and they've come to meet with the mullah. It said at the very beginning, the Vaishnavas were honoring Paramatma feature within the Muslims. because they knew they weren't connecting with transcendence. So they were seeing the transcendental aspect within their beings, which is Paramatma. That's what the Vaishnavas were worshipping and honoring. You see, you are all learned pundits. If you kindly consider this matter in a generous mood, you will understand. We Vaishnavas are completely disinterested in material things, and we do not want to enter into long drawn-out arguments. If you kindly permit us, we shall now go to hear the sublime musical narration of Sri Chaitanya Mangal. So the Vaishnavas don't want to debate, they don't want to argue, and more or less Gaurachandra is bringing the whole conversation to a close because the mullah he's in his fixed position. You can't really change that. He's saying all the enlightening facts. But if he's not generous-hearted and munificent and thinking and listening, he's not going to be able to accept it. You have to be very broad to come into Krishna consciousness. So broad. If we're younger, it's a lot easier because when you're younger, you tend to accept things more readily. But as you grow older, it's more difficult to accept truths. You need more praman, you need more evidence for the truths, because people get stuck in their ways, so to speak. Oh, getting a message already from Prakashatma. He'll tell me afterwards. He'll probably scold me. It was not evident what conclusion the Mullah Sahib reached. As a result of this decision, after a short silence, he said, I have been pleased to hear your point of view. This is very good. On another day, I will return and inquire further. Now it is late, and I wish to return home. He and his party then mounted their horses and departed for Satsaika Paragan. So it's interesting how Gaurchand, he already said, we want to leave now. But then the mullah responds and said, but I have to leave. So the mullah is actually the one who's leaving the Vaishnavas. It's etiquette like that. Yeah. The Babajis loudly uttered the name of Sri Hari with great delight and entered the temple to hear the recitation of Sri Chaitanya Mangal. So this is the conclusion of this remarkable chapter. There are so many truths in this chapter. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his birthplace is Birnaga, and he lived here in this place for about 10, 12 years. And it's surrounded by Muslims. So he would have to have constant interaction with Muslims on all levels. But as I said previously, these Muslims are not like those Muslims perhaps in Iran or Pakistan or further away. They're all being greatly influenced by the festivals of the Vaishnavas constantly conducting, Janmastami, etc. They're being given Mahaprasad all the time, etc. So they're getting a lot of influence from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur is aware of them as a distinct religious order, and he's taken the trouble to speak about them. Mahaprabhu, he also meets the Muslims, the Partana Vaishnavas, in that chapter, where the Muslims, those riders, they come. You remember the pastime, Mahaprabhu is with Krishnadas, and he's with the Synodian Brahmana, and he's with Balabhadra Bhattacharya, and he's with another Bengali. And it's described specifically in the purport that the two Bengalis are trembling out of fear because they're very timid. But the others, the Synodian Brahmana and Krishnadas, they are very bold in the face of these, because these riders, these Muslim soldiers, are accusing the devotees. This is when Mahaprabhu is on his way back to Varanasi and Prayag after leaving Vrindavan. And he has gone into an ecstatic faint. And they believe, these soldiers, that these other four people have killed him and are wanting to take his wealth, although, of course, he hasn't got any wealth. But they're accusing them like that. But then Mahaprabhu, he regains consciousness and he detects amongst these 5 personalities, there's one who's like a young king or a kingly person. And he's very educated, and Mahaprabhu begins to speak to him about Koda, about God, etc., in the Islam tenets. And he completely captivates this young person, as well as influences the other Muslim riders. And all these Muslim riders, they begin a whole sect called the Partana Vaishnavas. And it's described that they carry this because they've been speaking with the Lord directly, and he's been able to impregnate their heart, change their hearts to understand the reality. Because this young Muslim, like prince, he's recognizing that there must be form. This is the first big step to climb over. I can remember I've shared before many times going to Istanbul, where the principal meditation is the formless Allah. But we would get big groups of people coming, very pucker people, lawyers, doctors, people like this, professional people. And I would show that universal map to them. And I would always ask them the same question. You all, the name Allah, one of the meanings is light. But what is the source of that light? Where does the light come from? Do we have any experience in this world of light that doesn't have an object to it, where it's manifesting from, the sunlight or the electric light, the firelight, etc.? All has an object, has a source. And they would think about that, and it would really touch them, the conception that there must be an energy, where it is coming from, or an energetic, that Shaktiman, just to consider the form, the source of Shakti. And then it would really make an impact on them. So this is what Mahaprabhu did to this prince. He makes this very clear, because the Brahman conception is what they have their faith in, the absolute impersonal Brahman, moksha. And ultimately, from what I've studied about Christianity, they have the same. If we study the Christian mystics, I've read, they are like merging into that light, that Brahman light. And that Brahman light, we understand the dynamic, it's been described, is very warm, very loving. And um, there's no object that is loving, and we just feel a loving atmosphere. But there's no object to the love, because there's no sambandha in that realization of the Brahman. It's impersonal. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he's given us that beautiful essay. Before acquiring material identity, we are in this Brahman place of Shantaras. This is the Shantaras conception. And this is the very best that these religions can actually aspire for. They are aspiring for that. They're like aspiring for moksha. But that eliminates the personality. And what we say in our Falshruti, this ivitrata, you deny yourself the astonishing pastimes of the Lord. You deny yourself the astonishing beauty and speciality of Vrindavan Dham or Goradham, of all the leelas that go on between Krishna's Nityasiddha Parikas, which are just full of the most divine sentiments of Amala Prem Seva that we were hearing about. All this is not even there. So this is greatly all this that I'm saying, this ivitrata, this chamatkar, all this astonishing pastimes, they are all of the transcendental nature. But these other faiths and religions, because they don't accept that, they can't accept that. They're stuck in that impersonal conception. So it's all around us is personalism. We have mothers, fathers, family, etc. We have friends, relatives, right? There's so much personalism that we have. Why should we not consider that Supreme Lord, or where is that personalism coming from in this world amongst our various friendships? What?
The personalism in this world gives so much pain, so that's why We all want the liberation from the mukti.
Yes, but I'm just right. Yeah, yeah, right. So it's very easy just to be liberated from the pain and have only that idea. I mean, practically all the devotees come to this path because they want to be liberated. They want liberation from the suffering. That's why they come. That's the prompting. They don't come because they've heard about transcendental knowledge. They don't even know what transcendental knowledge is until they come. Rupa Goswami writes about it in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He talks the first about quarter of that book, talking about the bliss of liberation. But then he changes to the bliss of service, because that's the huge transition where I'm just not looking for my own welfare, my own selfish happiness, but I'm actually concerned with the welfare of others in this world, but as well as the connection with that transcendental world. This connection with others, that wasn't clear. I didn't mean to say that, because that's like a Christian sort of belief that we run around doing good for all people, but they don't understand how can you actually do devotional service to God. And it seems very commendable, that they're helping all people in backward countries and this and that and the other. And this is their mood, this vocational sort of mood. But that isn't transcendental. Don't they think that God himself can look after all the suffering and people like that? Do they have to sort of think that I have to do it? So that's not really devotion. It's devotion to humanity, which isn't devotion, which is not transcendental. Okay, so we've reached chapter 12, which is a very exceptional chapter. But next week there is I think it's the appearance day of Ramanuja, and then is Madhvacharya is tomorrow, then Ramanuja is the next day, and then it's Ekadashi, and then it's Varahadev, and then it's Nityananda Trayodasi, and then in the following week we have Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Purnima, and then we have Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, and then we have Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. So we have a whole stack of festivals that we can't just ignore and walk past. So I don't know how our progress is going to be so much moving in the next 10 days or so, because we'll have to touch on all these. But this 12th chapter is the preliminary to the start of the Dasamula. And previously, I was hoping that we would reach the Dasamula section by Gorpanim. This was my hope, and we've certainly done that. We've just got to go through this 12th chapter, and then we've reached the Dasamula section. And then after Gorpanim, because during Gorpanim, I'll be offering a virtual parikrama for those 5 days of parikrama, and I'll just be speaking for an hour and a half, 2 hours each day on all the different holy places in Goradam. And then after Gorpurnima, we'll begin our Dasmula section. And perhaps by Kartik time, we may be through to the Prayojan Tattva. So that's my projection. So Jaiva Dharma ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gauda Hari Bol, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Jai Vidama ki jai, Vaishnavas ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhuvevacha, Patidanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha.